Hello team and welcome back to another Line War cast in a 1v1. El Mexican in blue. Someone said that my nickname sucks in red. A little bit of water on this map. I don't believe that the body of water on the top left is at all connected to the body of water on the right hand side of the map. Mexican's going to spawn in the central part of the map right here on these two refineries. Nickname is going to be a little bit southwest. Nickname has 5 territories that were originally picked. Mexican has 6. So Mexican has 4 extra infantry. Nickname has a little bit more money, 4 barracks, and a dock with a transport boat from Mexican. We see that 5th barracks. So the plan for blue will be to use this transport boat to immediately send units potentially to this rightmost island, which is still connected, so it's the same landmass, but, you know, clearly if blue can get units over here on the top right, bottom right, it will speed up the capping. Nickname's also got a transport boat on the way, building a dock on the right-hand side of the map, so Nickname's going to have a naval presence in both the left body of water and the central one. And at some point we're going to see these two docks from both players probably fight. Nickname's gone for a cruiser off the rightmost dock, and then following up with 3 barracks, and has this artillery piece from the factory on the way. Nickname doesn't have a refinery that can be built immediately. That's probably why we see this move command from the infantry that are going to go down and secure this one for red. And vision-wise, clearly Nickname knows that this is coming, starting to dig in a little bit, which will force these blue units to either take a bad trade by trying to push through the defensive line or going through this gap. And it'll be, I think, unlikely that Mexican's going to try to push here. Blue's probably just content to get as close to the defensive line as possible, and then reassess. The first artillery piece is here for red, so it'll be even more difficult for blue to push through this, if that was the decision, and it's commandos being ferried across to this point on the map. This is going to be a very large buildup of units at this central location. Nickname's got another transport boat on the way on the left-hand side, and I was going to say that one is probably enough, so this is probably going to be a switch to likely a destroyer to start capping all these water territories on the left-hand side. And blue is actually going to go for this, which could pay off. It's only 1 deep defensive line, so it's not like this is the, you know, the most defense in-depth that red could have. Nickname's now plugged this right-hand side of the choke as well. This is definitely not going to work for blue. Very good use of the defensive lines in this situation. And pretty heavy losses for Mexican, but then backing up, resetting on these 4 dot commands. And the first 3 commandos are across the water for blue. Eco-wise, 350 for Mexican, 320 for Nickname. Nickname's got this first cruiser done. First cruiser on the way for Mexican. And how the Navy develops on the right-hand side is going to be really interesting. We'll see if Nickname decides to build a barracks on the leftmost island. There are a lot of trade routes on the left-hand side for Nickname to be taking. This town is connected to this network, this town to this town, and then all these dotted lines on the left-hand side. Clearly, Nickname's not going to be able to take this town that's very firmly under Mexican's grasp. And first cruiser for blue moves out to start capping. Capping this water territory with the energy well. Blue still hasn't built a refinery yet. And neither has Nickname. This territory is kind of nearly complete. There's 1 infantry. Sometimes I find when there's only 1 infantry on a territory, it kind of bugs out and they don't keep capping this territory. So a work in progress for Nickname. And really, you can't imagine that blue is going to try to push through this again, given how poorly that fight went the first time, and this artillery location from Nickname is pretty much perfect. Really covers the right-hand side of these defensive lines. Missile boat for Nickname is going to start capping. The second missile boat on the way. The Mexican's got a barracks in the north. Eco-wise, 360 for red. 370 for blue. There's no factories for Mohican, so even pushing through this defensive line becomes that much more difficult. Sometimes with your own artillery pieces, you can start chipping away at these infantry in the defensive lines because their artillery outranges them, obviously. Or tanks can punch through the defensive line. The plan is to rush in here on this haste attack move. It's a lot of blue infantry, but it's such a tough fight to take. This is blue's vision, so the artillery pieces are entirely in view. And probably wise for Mohican to back up again. Nickname's got this one cruiser very close, so we can rush into the coast and help out in the defense if that is what's needed. So Nickname with this destroyer might start scouting some of these buildings. Right now, the starting location is probably blue can guess where it is, but can't see any of the buildings. But now seeing the cruiser obviously confirms that Mohican has a dock on this side. And a transport boat from Nickname out of the dock as a follow-up. Both players are about to be entirely out of energy. That's Nickname's first refinery that goes down. It is in the water on the left-hand side. Mohican's gas also very low. And not very likely that the next building that blue takes is a refinery right here. Contained within inside these 5 barracks. 2 barracks for Nickname is going to be enough to generate enough infantry and commandos potentially to push back Mohican, who has capped 3 of these territories and could build a building down here. Potentially, obviously, there's more pressing concerns by getting that refinery up. And very slowly, Nickname's going to inch forward. There's a moment here where Mohican might be able to jump on at least these infantry, but they're covered quite well by the artillery pieces. And first refinery is now up for Nickname. And here comes another push. 430 eco for blue and 460 for red, so it was still very, very close. Trade-wise, blue's probably lost more units than red, which will matter over time. A little bit of pandemonium in red's defensive lines. Not all the units got settled. These 3 artillery pieces are in the back. Not getting the range bonus of being in the defensive line, but nevertheless, they have enough meat shield in front of them that they're going to be able to fire for a long time. And Nickname's going to disband this defensive line to try to get more infantry in the fight. The cruiser's helping out quite nicely. Nothing else that's going on in the map really matters as much as it does here. If Mohican can really decisively break through, then blue would be able to take out the factory, the barracks, and also the dock. The red units are thinning, but so are blue. There's still 3 artillery pieces that are entrenched, with like a decent number of red infantry in front to provide a meat shield for the big guns to keep firing. Refinery for Mohican's on the way. Nickname's starting to cap to the bottom right side of the map. And besides this pocket of commandos, generally this is held by Nickname. It's very expensive for Mohican, but there are 6 commandos or so, 7 commandos that get around the defensive lines and start working on this town. Or, pardon me, this factory. And with the 2 SAMs here and a handful of infantry, the factory is still going to go down. The DPS of the commandos once they're on top of the building is pretty impressive. And with that pop, the factory is destroyed. Nickname's got 7 infantry or so off of this one northern barracks that are capping and growing that economy. It looks like Blue wants to continue to push based on the lines. 570 income for Red and 430 for Blue, so Mohican is quite far behind on the eco at this point, which is probably because of the success that Nicknames had here, taking back these 3 territories that Mohican had capped. And then this leftmost island, the territories that have been captured there by Red. Probably the difference in the eco numbers. We're seeing a little bit of activity with the Navy. It's 3 cruisers showing up to pressure this dock. With 2 missile boats, 1 destroyer, and 1 cruiser, I think this would actually be a relatively even fight. With Blue expected to win, but not by much. And the transport boat for Nickname is getting in position to start moving some infantry around. Unless I don't see what other reason this boat would have to come down here close to the shore. This is exactly how Nickname, I think, should play this, is by running around from the cruisers and forcing these 3 cruisers to spend all this energy to keep chasing. And also potentially buying more time for another heavy-hitting boat to show up. It's going to be a missile boat most likely for Red. And here comes this transport boat to land right on the dock. If it can land 4 infantry here, they might be able to destroy the dock depending on the timing of what units pop out of these blue barracks. Very heavily damaged red cruiser and a very heavily damaged blue cruiser. The red cruiser's gone now. And so pretty good for Mohican to keep all 3 cruisers alive and have all the red boats pretty damaged. This is a very good move from Nickname though, as mentioned, with the 4 infantry. And the infantry aren't going to be able to kill the building as quick as we saw those commandos do earlier. And the 3 cruisers are potentially the difference here in why this blue dock stays alive. It would have been close with 4 commandos showing up at that time to try to peel those infantry off the building. 480 income for blue, 720 for red. But another relatively scary push. The red artillery is kind of derping out, which is expected whenever infantry try to, or any units for that matter, try to move through defensive lines that have units, which is unfortunate for Nickname in part of this defense, so one of the guns won't be firing as much as it could. And I think in the best situation, these blue infantry and commandos would be able to actually overwhelm this defensive line. If they all get here at the same time and push as one, which is easier said than done. And the plan is still just streaming in infantry and commandos for Mohican, finally on top of the artillery pieces in the defensive line. And some of the blue infantry is actually behind the defensive line, so none of the defensive bonuses get applied if the unit's getting attacked from behind. Relative to where this defensive line is, where the entrenchment is. These 2 barracks from Nickname are huge here to send in some of these infantry reinforcements to try to hold this position, but there's so much blue units that Mohican may have done this. The 2nd barracks will be safe. The cruisers won't be able to reach that. Potentially if they're right here, 1 would be able to hit, but I don't think so. Nickname's response to this pressure is to start landing more units on the dock. And it'll be interesting to see if Nickname decides to build another dock on the right-hand side here or just give up on the Navy. Both players have a barracks in the bottom left. Whoops, overshot that. And blue is going to win this fight. And there's not going to be a lot at home for Mohican to defend this. It's really just going to be 2 barracks against 5 barracks. The dock is going to go down. The determination for Nickname to keep landing here pays off. So this now leaves Mohican just with 4 boats, 4 cruisers. They're out of gas right now because it's just one refinery that Blue has built. And this is looking better and better for Nickname over time. Good amount of infantry here, so probably not gonna have too much issue with this barracks. Nickname won't be able to see this yet though because of the stealth characteristics of that barracks in the mountain. And the new plan from Nickname is to rebuild the base kind of to the south here and use this forest as a natural defensive point. Obviously there's a submarine pen. Nickname's got a town and a port on the way, beginning to slowly set up this trade route in the bottom, and has infantry on the bottom left island. If we actually take a top-down look, Red has a little bit more caps and more eco buildings. Now with how many infantry are here and how close they are to the barracks, it is spotted, and Blue will likely lose that building very quickly. The Mohicans add in a factory into the mix. So at this point it's kind of difficult because I think Nickname is going to just get so much eco that it'll be hard for Blue to keep up. This landing from these 2 transport boats is going to be huge because there's only 2 commandos and 2 infantry up here. I suppose there's 2 more commandos and 2 infantry to the north for Mohican. But we likely expect Red to be able to take this territory and really establish like a beachhead, so to speak. And there's more eco on the way for Red. So it's a kind of a tough situation for Blue because there either needs to be a lot of ecoing that goes on right now to try to match what Nickname's doing. Nickname's eco is in some sense better because by completing those towns and ports, Nickname's also going to get a trade route as part of that, so even more economy. Or Mohican has to win relatively quickly here, because the longer this goes on, the more difficult it will get. Blue is probably aware of this. And there's this beachhead secured for Nickname, who could put a building here and might. 1108 income for Red and 582 for Blue. And Nickname nearly has the entire bottom part of the map. There's just 2 commandos here for Mohican. These fights still going decent for Blue. But going the extra mile through this forest is going to be very difficult, especially now that there's these 2 barracks and a factory that's been built. Second sub pen for Nickname, and this is a great play from Blue to send these units across and start taking away a bunch of this eco. Commandos will be close enough to see the submarine pen if they keep following this path. But those sub pens are sneaky because they have that stealth characteristic. Here's this barracks from Nickname. There's 2 for Mohican, rather the second one's being built. So over time, Blue should be able to deal with this. But attacking into it is going to be a little bit difficult just because of the defensive line from Red. And we noticed that Nickname stopped building boats out of the leftmost dock to save some money. And because all these leftmost territories are capped already, and there's a good healthy number of missile boats just in case there were planes from Blue that were going to try to, you know, strike this leftmost island where there's all these towns. Or even commando drop to this island. Nickname wouldn't necessarily know it, but there's no airport for Blue yet. Here's one of the sub pens that are spotted. Great pickup from Blue to catch all these Red boats trying to get across. Probably realizing, like Nicknames realized that there was transport boats at some point that went across here. and just assuming that there would be continued reinforcements. And top down, a lot of red on the map. Here comes this factory. This will change the math on there being 2 red barracks, or rather 2 blue barracks. With the factory, if it's building artillery pieces or even SAMs, make it more difficult over time for blue to really get nickname off of that landmass, or that part of the map. And these defensive lines have really helped nickname in this game, in the sense that like the blue units keep needing to traverse through the entrenchments. They could go around it, but it's always more awkward to do that, to micro it that way. And the dock is going to go down. Very likely. Mohican's going to target command it. Eco-wise, 1321 for red, 622 for blue. One of the subpens is destroyed. There's still 4 red submarines. I feel like this was a very expected place for Nickname to have built a dock or a submarine pen. This just seems like a perfect sort of place to build that. So Mohican checks it, sees nothing. And Nickname rebuilds this dock on the left side of the map. And here comes the attack. Blue's decided to go now. The infantry is out of the defensive lines, which is really good for blue, but there's still so much red infantry. And 1 artillery piece that's working. I suppose if all the infantry for red just stand here in this move command, then blue might be able to win this fight. The artillery piece going down for red is going to make this a little dicey to hold both the buildings. The added reinforcements might be exactly what Nickname needs to keep this factory alive. It is SAMs out of the factory. And the SAMs would do decent against infantry. Especially once they get enough numbers. And Nickname is going to start pushing here. Pretty good situation for Mohican, who will kind of surround this army with commandos and infantry on the left-hand side, and obviously these artillery pieces and infantry in the direct path of where red was wanting to go. Gotta check on this. Nickname holds it. First SAM is out and an artillery piece is on the way. It's probably very important that Mohican's able to keep this barracks alive. This is a lot of economy on the bottom left side of the map, or bottom right side, pardon me. And having the barracks there would be huge to try to take that back and at least contest it. But the eco is still such a problem. One of the trade routes is already up. The second one is about to be up if this is connected. I don't actually think it is. It's certainly connected to one of these 2 towns and ports. And Nickname's got more industry on the way as well. First airport in the game. And we haven't seen a tank be built yet. Which is refreshing. Not that we see them every single game, but we have seen a lot of tanks in general. Here comes a big moment. Mohican's got to get through this forest, and can blue do it? Blue will have more artillery pieces in the fight for the first little bit, but Nickname's added a second factory, which will be huge in the defense. Mohican's gonna get these 2 barracks. These commandos are so tired from haste moving, but they do finally get on top of the buildings. There's nothing around here for Nickname to defend. These 2 infantry, when they pop out, they might be able to destroy one of the commandos. And all of these ports for Nickname finishing relatively around the same time. This is going to be an enormous eco boost for Red, who also takes out that barracks that Mohican had on the right side of the map. And top down, this is what it is. This is what we're looking at. Red submarine doing what it does best. Tracking this transport boat, which will stop any further reinforcements because Mohican doesn't have any more transport boats after this one is destroyed. And 602 income for blue, 1877 for red. And this is a lot of red trade routes that have lit up now that all the ports are completed. First helicopter for blue gets involved, which will force some SAMs out of these red factories. But red already has enough artillery pieces, so that would be probably okay. The great thing about Nickname's position at this point is even like losing these two barracks, we see that red just immediately builds 3 more barracks here. And if these were to get taken out, then Nickname can just kind of rinse repeat that strategy off this income and really just pay for this win. Blue's gonna get ready to push again. I was gonna say Nickname would like potentially add more buildings here because the Navy control is cemented, so it's not like Nickname has to worry about blue boats showing up to the coast and destroying some of these buildings. It's really just these 4 cruisers, and I suspect that Nickname feels that with this number of subs, that the cruisers aren't going to be able to sneak around and get to those buildings. Something so satisfying about the way the trade route lines line up, or light up, pardon me, when the ports are finally complete. One missile boat is actually enough to deal with 1 helicopter, or at least force it back. There's 2 helicopters for blue now. And a factory added in the north for Mohican, which evens out the production facilities. Of course, Nickname has like a 3 artillery head start. And just so much more money. Nickname's sitting on 730 right now. A tougher situation for Mohican. The 4 cruisers are really nice to be here. They'll do pretty decent against their artillery pieces. And mostly because of like these blue units that are rushing in as well and pressuring their artillery. It's the submarines for red that are going to seal the deal here and destroy these 4 cruisers, which will mean that Nickname can just start pushing again, link up with these 3 barracks worth of infantry. And even if that position was lost in the north for red, GG, well played. Let's look at graphs. We gotta get a town's built stat here. That was a Mohican suggestion. It's in the suggestions forum in the Discord, which leads to the point. Check out the Discord, the line where Discord if you want to learn more about the game, find games, chat, hang out. I hope you enjoyed this video. Twitch.tv/SodaQuackers Monday and Wednesdays. We'll see you around. Hope you have a wonderful night, evening, day, whatever it is. Peace.